by the middle of the second quarter. Alabama 45, Ole Miss 3. That's how I see it. I don't know.
I'm going to say Alabama 31. I think Ole Miss has got enough to get maybe 13.
Oh, man.
So, a couple field goals. You know, they'll have a couple big plays that'll get them close, and then they can punch it in.
Yeah, well, Ole Miss coach will be wishing he was back in that Batman movie before you know it, I guess.
Who knows?
All right, let's talk about some other SEC games coming up this week. We already talked about Arkansas a little bit. They have to travel to College Station this week to play Texas A&M. I'm thinking things aren't looking too good for them at this point. Going into, I guess this will be Texas A&M's second SEC home game. So
right.
They're still looking for that first SEC victory. What do you think about this one?
I think it's going to get ugly before it gets better for Arkansas. I don't see it getting better until next year. Arkansas is going to really struggle to find wins, and I was impressed with Texas A&M's offense in the first half against Florida. I think they're going to keep that rolling. Arkansas gave up a ton of points to Rutgers, who has a slower type of the same system of Texas A&M, and I think this one could get out of hand and get out of hand quickly. I think Texas A&M gets this pretty easily.
Certainly, yeah. Texas A&M has been putting up some pretty monster points against the Cupcakes they've played since that Florida game. And, if you want to make an argument for Texas A&M, pretty much the only thing you can say, an argument for Arkansas, is that Tyler Wilson's coming back, so you got him now in the equation. I guess he was back last week, but they had 419 passing yards against Rutgers they put up, and they still lost.
Right.
So I really don't think you can even use that as an argument and say, well, they got Tyler Wilson. He's got a lot more experience than Texas A&M's quarterback, Johnny Manziel. No, I mean, when you're getting 419 passing yards and giving up 400 passing yards, you're not going to win football games.
Until their defense decides it can play some football, they will not win a game.
Yeah. All right. Here's an exercise I'd like to do right now. Let's pull up Arkansas's remaining schedule and see if you can find any winnable games.
Any winnable games.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure they're going to play a cupcake here or there. They've got Texas A&M, at Auburn, home against Kentucky, home against Ole Miss, home against Tulsa, at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and home against LSU. I would say they can beat Kentucky. It's a winnable game against Ole Miss, and they should probably beat Tulsa. So I'd say two pretty good locks, and then a maybe with Ole Miss. Outside of that, I don't think they can win another one.
I say they get one more win, Kentucky.
You can get one. I can see them losing to Ole Miss, but they should not lose to Tulsa.
Tulsa's been putting up some pretty big yardage.
Yeah.
I don't know if Arkansas can defend them at this point.
That's a good point. They have no pass defense.
I don't know. I mean, how bad of a scenario is it? I mean, are couches burning, people jumping off bridges? I don't know if there are bridges in Arkansas, but
probably not. It's pretty flat.
I mean, if they go 2-10, I mean, can you even come back from that and have a halfway decent season next year with any coach?
Well, sure, yeah. New coach, brand new players. You can come back and have maybe a 500 season after that, but this is not the season Arkansas fans were hoping for when they thought they were going to get a chance at winning the West. I mean, now you're just hoping for 3 wins. That's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess when you kind of dig into this, is the real problem here just that Bobby Petrino's not there, or was this kind of one of those writing on the wall things where even if Bobby Petrino was still there, they would have been in for a big disappointment?
They would have been in for a disappointment. They would not have been as good as they wanted to be. Arkansas fans were thinking of an undefeated season. That wasn't ever going to happen. They had the defensive holes. There's nothing you can do about that. They were going to be there whether Petrino was there or not. However, I do think there is a significant change in the offense. Even when Tyler Wilson's in the game, it's not the same offense. He was the orchestrator, the designer of that O. And say what you want about him, he did a great job with that. So they're missing him on offense, but the defense was going to be awful one way or the other.
Yeah. All right, so both of us are going to take Texas A&M over Arkansas. That game is in the Pick 10, just in case you would care to try and pick Arkansas, but I would not recommend that at this point. Definitely stay away from that. The only choice for really a good matchup in the SEC this week, Tennessee at Georgia. I think Tennessee has really got to make a statement in this game. We talked about whether the Tennessee-Florida game was winner-take-all, make-or-break type of game for those two teams. Maybe not necessarily so, but Tennessee, they're running out of chances this season.
They are, and I think they really got exposed when they played Florida. Georgia runs a more powerful version of what Florida runs on offense. They really like to establish the run. They work well off play action. They can get you deep. Tennessee's defense kind of got exposed in that second half. Their offense has always been a big play offense, and Georgia definitely has the defense to not only shut you down, but to counterplay that and make some big plays of their own on defense. So I think Georgia's a lot stronger than maybe we thought at the beginning of the year. I'm starting to see what those analysts were seeing in the preseason. I like Georgia. Tennessee might make a fight for a little while, but I really think Tennessee losing that Florida game kind of has them on a downward trajectory.
Well, a little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about some of these top 10 teams like Georgia and other folks, and we'll sort of say if they're for real or not. Georgia's one of those, the jury's kind of still out for me, but the things you can say about them, they do have a very balanced attack, like you mentioned, worked very well against Vandy. Tennessee, much the opposite. Tennessee still does not have a running game, something I've been harping on since the beginning of the season, and I'm sure that the Georgia defense would love to make their rushing situation even worse, which I would anticipate happening. And then when you look at the other side for Tennessee, they gave up 26 points to the Terry Bowden-coached Akron Zips last week.
And the Akron Zips made it very close. Tennessee was lucky to get out of that game with a win.
You shouldn't be losing to Terry Bowden at this point. He weighs like 800 pounds. He looks like a marshmallow. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. So I'm going to say Georgia by, 2-3 touchdowns in this one, I would say.
I can say 17 points, something like that. Probably a close game for a little while just because of the style Georgia runs, trying to establish the run early, but then it probably breaks open towards the third, fourth quarters.
I think Georgia has a lot of motivation in this game, too. This is a CBS, nationally televised game for them. I think the public perception may still be that Tennessee is a better team than they really are. So if Georgia can go out there and just take them to the woodshed, that looks really good for them. That's a nice signature victory. So we'll see. We'll see what they can do with that one. The only other SEC game I wanted to talk about this week, South Carolina at Kentucky, just so we could mention the Joker Phillips Firewatch. Now, how hot are we right now?
When we talked about this last week, I put the line at 3 games. You said that was too high. So we're just going to stay at 3 games, and you're still under. So last week counts as 1 game.
Okay.
This week counts as 2 games. If he's not gone after this week, you've lost.
No, I said it was a 3.
You said under 3.
Under 3. All right.
We'll give you 3. I still think he's going to be there for the rest of the year. I don't think Kentucky can do any better. I think they'll wait until the year's out. Kentucky looks awful. I mean, they lose to Western Kentucky. That's about as bad as you get as far as Kentucky goes. And they really don't have a shot in any game that they have the rest of the season.
Yeah. Pretty rough stuff happening up there in Bluegrass State. Good news, Midnight Madness probably coming up soon, so just distract yourselves with that and as much bourbon as you can find, and then you'll be fine.
I'm sure they've got basketball recruiting or something they can do.
Yeah, something's got to be going up there. Horses, whatever it is.
Preseason tournament in Hawaii, that'd be nice.
Yes, who knows. We're going to go take a quick visit to Hawaii right now for about 30 to 45 seconds, and then we'll be back on the other side to talk about the rest of the results from last week's Pick 10 and give you a very non-SEC flavored Pick 10 for this week. We'll do that right here on the other side of outputting our coverage.
We're back, don't know what we're talking about. 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 We're back, here we go. No more commercials. Here we go. Always talking stuff. We're back, don't know what we're talking about, but we're back. Time for the show. We're back, here we go. No more commercials.
All right, we are back here on Outputting Our Coverage. It's time for the weekly official Outputting Our Coverage Pick'em Spectacular Scoreboard Update, brought to you by NFL Replacement Officials.
No, because this is correct, so it's brought to you by...
Well, my picks were about as good as the NFL Replacement Officials.
That's a good point. Speaking of your picks, you finished with 6-4, which was tied for second to last. Everybody pretty much had a really good week. We only had one person who dropped below 500. That would be Grizzly McDaddy.
Oh, man, what a tough fall there from the top a few weeks ago.
I'm telling you, he was doing really well. So he had 4 and 6, had a couple tied at 6 and 4. The mass majority was tied at 7 and 3. We had like 8 people there at 7 and 3. And then we had 5 people tied at 8 and 2 for the top.
That's pretty good.
I will just mention that if I had not been stupid with Vandy, could have had a 9 and 1. Maybe could have had an undefeated team season. But anyhow, so that leaves us with the final standings, or the overall standings. We do have a new leader, and it's by tiebreak points.
Oh.
Max 2011 is winning. He's tied with Bama Fan, 26 and 14.
Let me just say those tie breaks are very important. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to that. Picking the score for that game, I mean, that could be the difference here.
It adds up. And there was only one person who it appears did not put in their picks this week. So everybody seems to be active. That was pretty impressive. We've got a couple people tied only a game back. We've got 4 people only a game back at 25-15. We've got 2 people only 2 games back. I'm a part of that. And then even the people who are way out of it, like let's say Andy at 20 and 20, are only 6 games out.
Yeah,
so
I could get back on race.
Everybody's pretty close. Still got a really competitive poll. And even the people who just joined last week, like Antica, had a really good week, 7 and 3. So still time to jump in. You can still get in there, and we will mention your names on there.
Yes.
Andy and Larry Baker right now tied for the end, and we have a new person at the bottom of the board that's down there with you and Larry. Grizzly McDaddy had a bad week.
Oh, man.
He's down there now at the bottom of the poll, tied at 20 and 20.
Misery loves company.
That's what it is.
And Arkansas, Bobby Petrino, come on, we'll just get a support group going.
Everybody get in there together.
It'll be wonderful. Like I said, the Pick 10 for this week, very non-SEC flavor, not a lot to choose from. And it's kind of surprising because this is kind of the first week where real conference play is getting started. Everybody that's playing in the SEC this week is playing an SEC opponent. But we still ended up with some pretty terrible games.
Oh, yes.
So let's jump into the Pac-12 portion of our Pick 10. Starting off with a game that will probably be kicking off at about 1 a.m. Central Time tonight because it's somewhere out there on that west coast of the United States.
Does anybody watch those games?
I might, if I'm still up. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that, of course, is Stanford at Washington. Stanford still riding high as the number 8th ranked team in the country after their victory over USC.
This is the same team that beat San Jose State by 1.
They might show up in our overrated and underrated segment later.
I really hope they do.
But regardless of that, they do have to play at Washington this week. What do you think about this one?
Washington came into LSU earlier in the year. They had a couple of good plays, and that was about it. They got drummed pretty hard by an LSU team that played really close with Auburn. Stanford had an impressive win against USC, but they haven't been exactly impressive throughout the season, especially their earlier. We just talked about the San Jose State where they only won by 1. But I do think Stanford's the better team. I think they cover their spread of 7.5 points. I think they probably win by around 10. Most likely a close game, but Stanford all the way.
Yeah, Stanford is a physical team, which is kind of unusual for the Pac-12. They're a lot like LSU, who Washington has already played this season. And, earlier in the season I might have said they are not quite on the same level as LSU, but at this point I'm not sure.
Right.
They may be closer than we think, but the thing that worries me about Stanford is they have a lot of youth. They're replacing a lot of key cogs from the past couple of years. You mentioned that unimpressive opener. That doesn't really surprise me when you have a young team. They've probably improved quite a bit since then. And Washington not that impressive in their opener either, winning 21-12 over San Diego State. So, the two teams that probably you're going to get different results from week to week. But to me, like you said, Stanford's got more talented players. They're pretty decent at stopping the run. They really didn't allow USC to get much of a running game going at all. So I'm going to go with the trees in this one. I'll take Stanford.
So both of us are the same. It
Yes.
kind of scares me a little bit, but okay, we'll move on.
Never want to be picking with me, David. All right, let's continue the Pac-12 portion of our program with Oregon State at Arizona. We both correctly predicted the drubbing of Arizona last week. Is it
Right.
going to be the same this week?
I don't think so. I think the Beavers have gotten a lot of publicity for beating Wisconsin.